Imagine waking up and discovering that your luxury beauty cream was made from human skin. Every time you rubbed that miracle elixir onto your face, you were applying the rendered fat and powdered bones of a child who vanished in the night. This isn't a horror movie. In 1912, Barcelona, the city's elite paid fortunes for a secret ingredient called the grease of the innocents. They didn't ask where it came from. They didn't care why the orphans were disappearing. But behind the silk curtains of a quiet seamstress named Enriqueta Martí, a dark laboratory was boiling. She wasn't just sewing lace. She was harvesting humans. Enriqueta Martí was born in Sant Feliu del Llobregat in 1868. As a young woman, she moved to Barcelona, working as a maidservant and a nanny roles that gave her access to the city's most vulnerable. Soon, she turned to high-class prostitution. In 1895, she married a painter named Juan Pujala. It was a failure. They separated and reconciled 6 times. Her husband described a woman of unpredictable character and constant affairs. By the time of her final arrest, they had been separated for 5 years. She had no children of her own, but soon she would have plenty of others. By 1909, Enriqueta was a ghost in the streets. During the day, she dressed as a pauper, joining bread queues at monasteries to find the most abandoned-looking children. She snatched them from the slums, promising candies and shelter. By night, she transformed. She frequented the El Liceu Opera and high society casinos, offering her services as a procurer. To some, she provided children for unspeakable desires in her private brothel. To others, she was a witch doctor. She claimed that drinking the blood of a child could cure tuberculosis, the most feared plague of the 20th century. To Enriqueta Martí, the children of Barcelona were not human beings. They were ingredients. In the early 1900s, she began her most predatory phase. Her first documented raw material was a 5-year-old boy named Pepito. Enriqueta didn't just stumble upon him. She stalked him. She spent days at the monastery bread queues, blending in as a beggar in rags, watching for the children who had no one to hold their hands. She spotted Pepito small, malnourished, and desperate. She tracked him through the narrow, damp alleys of the Ravel for hours, waiting for the perfect moment of isolation. When she finally approached, she didn't show the face of a killer. She showed the face of a grandmother. She offered him a warm potato and promised him a place where he would never be hungry again. Pepito followed her, walking straight into the trap at number 29 Carrer Ponent. The moment the door locked, the kind woman vanished. She stripped him of his ragged clothes, saving them in a burlap sack, not out of mercy, but because she was a seamstress who wasted nothing. On the cold kitchen table, the processing began. She used a heavy boning knife to harvest his fat, his blood, and his bone marrow while the city outside slept. This was the birth of her miracle elixirs. Pepito's life was boiled down in a cauldron, bottled into jars, and sold to the elite of Barcelona for 50 pesos. Pepito was only the beginning. For 12 long years, Enriqueta turned kidnapping into a precise industry. She didn't stop at one apartment. She expanded. At number 29, she kept her victims. In her other flats at Carrer Tolles and Carrer Picalquers, she built false walls and secret compartments to hide the remains. She became a ghost that haunted the night. In 1906, she encountered a mother from Alcañiz who had traveled a long distance with her infant son. Enriqueta approached her with an extraordinary kindness, offering to hold the heavy child while the exhausted mother rested. It took only 10 seconds of distraction. Enriqueta slipped into the shadows of the crowd and disappeared with the baby. That child, like many others, became a tonic for a wealthy businessman's tuberculosis. By 1909, her crimes took a darker turn. She opened a secret brothel, catering to the sickest desires of the high society. She didn't just kill children for medicine, she prostituted them. When they became too old or too broken, they were moved to the kitchen table. Their hair was shorn to make wigs for the rich, and their bones were ground into powder for anti-aging creams. She was running a factory where every part of a human child was a product for sale. The cycle of blood reached its peak on February 10th, 1912. Enriqueta was walking near the Ronda de San Pau when she saw 5-year-old Teresita Guitart. In broad daylight, she snatched her, covering the child's head with a heavy black rag to muffle her screams. Inside the apartment at number 29, Enriqueta's routine was now mechanical. She cut Teresita's hair, immediately preparing it for the wig makers, and renamed her Felicidad. She told the girl, "You have no parents. I am your mother now."
You have no parents. I am your mother now.
Teresita was forced into a life of silence, fed on stale bread, and forbidden from ever looking out the windows. But this time, Enriqueta's arrogance was her undoing. She didn't realize that, as she watched the city for her next victim, someone else was watching her. Enriqueta Martí thought she was untouchable, protected by the dark alleys of the Raval and her wealthy clients. But she underestimated the power of a neighbor's suspicion. The beginning of the end came through a woman named Claudia Elias. Claudia lived across from number 29 Carrer Ponent. For weeks, she had been watching the flat on the first floor. She noticed two things that didn't make sense. A strange, metallic smell of burning bone coming from the chimney, and a young girl's face peering through the wooden shutters. The girl's hair had been crudely shorn off, and her eyes were filled with a hollow terror. On February 17th, 1912, Claudia's suspicion turned into action. She asked Enriqueta about the girl. Martí, usually cold and calculated, panicked. She slammed the window shut without a single word. That silence was her death warrant. Claudia didn't go to the police, not yet.
I can't believe what I saw last night. It was so sudden, so shocking.
What happened?
She went to a local mattress maker down the street and shared her dread. The girl in that flat looks exactly like the missing Teresita Guitart. The rumor spread through the neighborhood like wildfire, eventually reaching a municipal agent named José Asens. On February 27th, 1912, the authorities decided to act, but they didn't use a battering ram. They used a lie. Two agents from the Ribot Brigade approached Enriqueta while she was in a nearby courtyard. They didn't accuse her of murder. They told her there had been a legal complaint about unauthorized chickens in her flat. It was a mundane excuse, a clever ruse designed to keep her calm and prevent her from destroying evidence. Enriqueta, arrogant and confident in her high society protection, didn't object. She walked the officers to number 29, opened the heavy wooden door with her own key, and stepped inside. But as the officers crossed the threshold, the smell of poultry was replaced by something thick, sweet, and metallic. It was the stench of a charnel house. Inside, they found the two living ghosts, Teresita Guitart and Angelita. Teresita was terrified, her identity stolen, her hair shorn, and her name forcibly changed to Felicidad. As one officer kept Enriqueta in the lounge, the other began to search the rooms she had forbidden the children from entering. While the detectives catalogued the 50 jars of human remains, it was the testimony of the young survivors that shook the foundation of Barcelona. Teresita told the police how Enriqueta had promised her candies before dragging her into a life of potatoes, stale bread, and pinches. She lived in a psychological prison, told that her parents were dead and that Enriqueta was her only family. But it was Angelita who held the darkest secret of the flat. In her formal declaration, Angelita described the fate of the boy known as Pepito. She revealed that she had secretly watched through a crack in the kitchen door as Enriqueta placed the 5-year-old boy on the table. She didn't just see a murder, she saw a harvest. She described how Martí used a large boning knife to dismantle the boy, rendering his fat and collecting his blood while it was still warm. Angelita's words were the final nail in the coffin. The police matched her description to the fresh fat and bone fragments found in the jars. The vampire had been caught red-handed not by forensic science, but by the eyes of a child who had seen too much. As the police led Enriqueta through the streets, the crowds didn't just want an arrest, they wanted blood. The public screamed for the garrote, the brutal execution device of Spain. But the black ledger found in her home, filled with the names of doctors, politicians, and bankers, made a public trial too dangerous for the elite. On May 12, 1913, before she could ever name her clients in court, Enriqueta Martí was found dead in her cell at the Reina Amalia prison. The official cause was uterine cancer, but the prisoners told a story of a late-night lynching. Some believe she was silenced by those who bought her elixirs. Others believe the inmates took justice into their own hands. She was buried in a secret, common grave on the mountain of Montjuic, leaving behind a legacy of jars, knives, and the haunting memory of the children who never came home. The vampire of Barcelona was dead, but the shadows of number 29 would never truly fade.